T.I.'s son, King Harris, has been arrested after not appearing in court and some other things connected to his actions.
Trying to coddle him for. Let the man walk off, have some time to himself, sit down, soak it up, and come up with what he need to do.
King Harris is just 21 years old, the son of Atlanta legends T.I. and Tiny, and according to reports, he's now fighting for his life after what insiders are calling a straight-up ambush. What went down inside that Georgia facility doesn't sound like a random jail scuffle that got out of hand. It sounds planned. A cold, calculated move meant to take him out. Medical records being talked about online say his skull was cracked by what doctors described as a lock in a sock, a padlock wrapped in cloth and swung like a weapon. Several bones in his face were shattered, and by the time guards got to him, he was already unconscious on the floor. But the detail that really has people talking is what supposedly happened right before the attack. Internal reports claim every security camera in that block mysteriously went dark just minutes beforehand.
Being arrested isn't really like the shocker. It's him coming out and his, I guess, reaction to it, right? Because everybody's saying, King, you grew up privileged, bro. Why are you going down this path? Now he's talking about F the police, F12. So, you know, he just don't care.
No footage, no angles, no visual record of who walked in or out. Then, when it's all over, the cameras conveniently come back in a place where every inch is supposed to stay under watch. That sudden blackout doesn't feel like bad luck. It feels intentional, like someone knew exactly when the eyes in the sky would go blind. And that's what makes people look past the arrest itself and focus on how he got here. King being locked up wasn't the biggest shock to the public. It was the way he carried himself afterward. For years, people have thrown the same line at him. You grew up privileged, bro. Why are you going down this path? Instead of backing off, he leaned into it, talking reckless, cursing out the police, pushing an I don't care attitude like he had nothing to lose. Now, with rumors of a setup, a blackout, and a brutal beating all hitting at once, that same energy makes the whole situation feel way more dangerous. Because if this wasn't just a fight, then somebody decided King Harris needed to be silent. And this is where the story starts to get much darker. On paper, none of this should have ever gone that far. King wasn't in there on some wild, violent case. He was serving short time tied to a minor DUI and a missed court date. The kind of charges most people expect to walk away from with bruised pride, not a broken skull. He was supposed to lay low, do his days, and go home. Instead, it turns into what looks like a targeted hit. When you line up how small his case was against how extreme this attack sounds, it stops feeling like punishment and starts looking like somebody made an example out of it.
Able to do that if it wasn't for family hustle.
Right.
And it does come with some, you know, it's some adversity. It's some adversity to come with that. People get in your bed.
The timing makes it even harder to ignore. Just weeks before everything went left, King had stepped into a brand new chapter of his life. He'd just become a father for the first time, proudly posting about his baby and celebrating with his family. One moment, he's a young dad smiling on camera. The next, the story online is that he's lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, fighting for his life. That jump from joy to disaster is so extreme, people can't shake the feeling that something or someone pushed it there. And then the whispers start spreading about what he was doing inside those walls. People close to the situation claim King wasn't just sitting quiet, waiting for his release date. They say he started talking about what really goes on when the cameras aren't looking. Guards allegedly sneaking in contraband, looking away while certain inmates ran extortion schemes, picking favorites and letting the powerful guys control the tier. The kind of things everybody knows are happening, but nobody's supposed to put into words. According to one insider, King was even thinking about taking it beyond hallway conversation, reaching out to his lawyer and filing something official. Names, dates, details, and in a system built on silence, that's where a lot of people think he crossed the line. Because the moment you threaten to put all of that on record, it doesn't just embarrass a few guards. It threatens jobs, money, and people's position. That's when motives start looking a lot uglier. Even investigators, at least from what's being whispered, are split. Some look at the blackout, the weapon, the level of force used, and see a setup designed to shut him up before he could cause real trouble. Others think the target wasn't just King, it was a warning aimed past him, maybe at another inmate, maybe at his father, who has his own list of enemies in music, business, and law. Either way, the idea that this was just a random fight is getting harder and harder for people to believe.
Not gonna do and open up the door to my bedroom, as you shouldn't have to either. Open up the door to my bedroom for everybody to come in, chime in, and make their opinions about what we do and don't do or should or shouldn't do. But I will say this, whatever we ever have done, has been done with consensual adults.
And as the questions stack up, this stops looking like one bad night in a cell and starts bleeding into the bigger, messier story the Harris family has been trying to outrun for years. For the Harris family, this kind of chaos doesn't hit out of nowhere. T.I. has said before that everything they've ever built came with adversity attack. The fame, the shows, family hustle, the polished image of a tight, successful clan, all of that made people feel entitled to pick apart their every move. And just as they were trying to keep that image controlled, their name was already tangled in another storm, because while King's alleged ambush was blowing up online, T.I. and Tiny were still dealing with the fallout from their own legal drama. Their long-running defamation clash with influencer Sabrina Peterson had dragged old accusations back into the spotlight, claims that painted them as controlling and manipulative, even tying them to alleged trafficking and misconduct. They denied everything from day one, stood firm that she was lying on their name. The courts eventually tossed her case and shut down her appeal, but before that happened, she got loud again. She hit social media promising receipts, hinting at federal attention and reigniting every ugly rumor people had been arguing about since 2021. So when word spread that King had allegedly been attacked inside a facility, and then people heard about a mysterious camera blackout at the exact same time, the internet didn't hesitate to start connecting dots. It wasn't just something happened to King. It turned into, is this connected to everything his parents have been fighting for years? People started pushing the idea that this might not be random at all, but part of something deeper, something aimed at a family that's already made more than a few enemies.
Graduated. That's the only good thing they posted of me going viral. I'm not on the media's good side. I don't know why, but it ain't.
Then came the explanation that made everybody even more suspicious. Officials claim the reason there's no footage of the attack is because of a power relay error that supposedly knocked the cameras offline. Just a glitch, just tech failing at the worst possible moment. But former correctional officers and people familiar with prison security systems called that story out immediately. They pointed out how rare it is for every camera in one block to go dark at the same time and then magically recover right after the chaos is over. The timeline being floated around makes it look even worse. The blackout allegedly started about 6 minutes before the attack went down and ended roughly 5 minutes after medics showed up. So you've got this perfect little window. No cameras when the setup happens, no cameras when the beating happens, no cameras when the first response happens. In a place where every inch is supposed to be under constant watch, that gap doesn't feel accidental. It feels like someone hit a switch. Even people close to the investigation, if you believe the whispers, admit that the whole situation throws up serious red flags. Not just about the attack itself, but about who had the access and the nerve to darken an entire block right before a high-profile inmate gets nearly beaten to death. At that point, the story stops sounding like jail violence and starts sounding like something way more organized.
How do you feel with, because now that the evolved T.I. is also the even more of a father T.I., because not only are you just a father, you have to be a father in the industry, because all your kids are in the industry.
Man, damn. Yeah, that's I ain't see that one.
And once you add in the Harris family's history of drama, lawsuits, and enemies, it's not hard to see why so many people think this was never just about one young man in one cell. The weapon alone tells you this wasn't some heat-of-the-moment swing. That lock in a sock isn't something you throw together in a panic. It's a prison-made tool, built ahead of time, wrapped, hidden, and pulled out when somebody already knows exactly what they're about to do. That's why so many people see it as the clearest sign this was a setup. This wasn't two dudes arguing and losing control. This was a hit, precise, brutal, and planned. People inside say there was some kind of argument earlier that day. But here's the thing, nobody is putting anything on paper. No formal statements, no official witnesses, just whispers in the hall. One insider didn't sugarcoat it at all. They said people disappear for less. That one line sums up the fear in that place. If what happened to King really was a message, then everybody who saw or heard too much already understands exactly why it's safer to keep their mouth shut. And right after the attack, rumors started flying that a few guards were quietly reassigned, not written up publicly, not blasted in the news, just quietly moved like pieces getting shifted before someone starts asking the wrong question. To a lot of people watching from the outside, that doesn't look like routine staffing. It looks like damage control.
Crediting and trying to take that I done did and be like, nah, it ain't good. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's like...
Meanwhile, the world outside those walls feels completely different. Outside the hospital, people keep showing up. Fans, neighbors, folks who watched him grow up on TV, all lighting candles, chanting his name, holding up signs, demanding the truth. For them, this isn't just a story about a celebrity's son. It's a story about a young man who, in their eyes, never got a fair shot to turn things around. T.I. stepped forward, only briefly, telling reporters that he wants truth, not vengeance. His tone was calm, measured, but you can see the storm under the surface. Tiny went to social media asking everyone to keep praying, clearly shaken. Insiders say behind those short, polite statements, the family is barely holding it together, juggling anger, fear, and the creeping sense that someone is playing with their lives. And then there's how King himself always felt about the spotlight. He once pointed out that the only time he really went viral in a good way was when he graduated. That's the one positive thing the media ran with. Everything else, it was fights, drama, and headlines painting him as the problem child. He said he's not on the media's good side and doesn't even know why. Now, with cameras allegedly going dark right when he needed them most, that old frustration hits way harder. It's like his whole life has been stuck between being dragged when it hurts him and erased when it could have protected him. And as people try to piece together what really went down, the story shifts from just a brutal beating to something that looks a lot like punishment for speaking too loud in a place built to make loud people disappear. Here's where it gets even more chilling. Just weeks before any of this went down, King wasn't talking like someone spiraling out of control. He was talking like somebody trying to turn his life around. On August 21st, 2024, he sat on Regina Carter's podcast and said he wanted to be bigger than Michael Jackson. He talked about fatherhood, music, redemption, all the things you only bring up when you're looking past the drama and trying to build something real. Listening back now, those clips feel haunting, like a glimpse of a future he was trying to step into but never got the chance to fully live out. Less than a month later, everything flipped. He was picked up in Dunwoody on an old warrant tied to that earlier case. What should have been a straightforward situation. Clear the warrant, face the judge, move on, turned into the start of a nightmare. He was transferred over to Pickens County, dropped into a totally different environment where his last name didn't protect him. It painted a target on his back. Overnight, the kid talking about being a better father and a bigger artist became just another inmate in a system that doesn't care how famous your parents are. From there, the story splits into two versions. One side says there were officers who quietly tried to look out for him, who knew he shouldn't be placed around certain people and tried to keep an extra eye on him. The other side insists the exact opposite, that the moment he walked in, he was seen as leverage, a tool, somebody whose family name could be used to push pressure outside those walls. According to those whispers, once he started speaking up about what he was seeing, guards allegedly moving contraband, inmates running extortion rings, corruption nobody was supposed to mention, he stopped being a young man doing short time and started being a problem. Sources close to the situation are split the same way. Investigators, some believe he was being quietly shielded until he talked too much and that the attack was a brutal way to shut him down before his complaints made it out to his lawyer and into official paperwork. Others are convinced the whole thing was bigger than King himself, that inmates with powerful connections on the outside saw him as the perfect pressure point, a way to send a message while his father is still fighting his own legal battle. Nobody can prove which version is real yet, but every unanswered question makes the story darker. And while the internet argues over motive, the Harris family's most picture-perfect moments suddenly don't look so picture-perfect anymore. From the outside, a lot of people see T.I. as this evolved version of himself, now not just the king of the South, but the father who has to guide a whole family of kids trying to move through the same industry that almost ate him alive. In interviews, he's been asked what it's like to be both the grown-up T.I. and the industry dad T.I., and even he's admitted he didn't see that version of his life coming. It's one thing to survive the game yourself, it's another thing entirely to watch your kids step into it, knowing exactly how ugly it can get when the cameras turn off. That's what makes the contrast so brutal when you look at where the family was just a short time before everything went dark. Back in August, T.I. and Tiny were celebrating 15 years of marriage. They were posting dreamy clips from Thailand, boat rides, vacation view, those soft focus moments that make it look like love has beaten everything stacked against them. The captions were all about love winning, love surviving storm, love standing tall when people counted them out. Fans flooded the comments with goals and heart emojis, treating it like a happy epilogue after years of public mess. Now, people are going back to those posts with a whole different lens. Some fans swear Tiny's words weren't just romantic, they were coded. They see those love through the tough times messages as quiet hints that the family was already buckling under pressure long before any news about King's alleged attack hit the internet, like she was smiling for the camera while something heavy was already pressing down on them behind the scenes. And if you zoom out, you can't ignore the path. For years, the Harrises have been fighting lawsuits, denying accusations, and trying to outrun scandal after scandal. Old stories never really die. They just go quiet until something new drags them back into the light. Every time they try to move forward, something reaches back and pulls the past up with it. But this time, it's different. This isn't another gossip headline or a messy Instagram live. This is blood. This is a son rumored to be clinging to life while the people in charge offer almost nothing. That sounds like a real explanation. The state keeps saying they're doing an internal review, that things are being looked at, that answers will come. But so far, no detailed report on the missing footage, no clear timeline, no public breakdown of how an entire block loses its cameras right before a high-profile inmate is attacked. The silence is starting to sound louder than any official statement, and while officials stall, word is the Harris family family isn't waiting around. They've reportedly brought in private security, tightening their circle on the outside, and they're gearing up to come at the facility legally, not just for what happened to King, but for every guard, supervisor, and decision maker who let a situation like this even be possible. At this point, in their eyes, it's not just about one person swinging a weapon, it's about the system that created the perfect conditions for it, then conveniently lost the footage that could have told the truth. And as that tension builds, King's story stops being just a tragic celebrity headline and turns into something much bigger, sitting right at the crossroads of fame, power, and a machine that seems way too comfortable operating in the dark. Online, this whole situation has already exploded into something bigger than one family's tragedy. Social feeds, blogs, podcasts, YouTube channel. Everybody has a theory, and nobody is letting it go. Some people are riding hard for the Harrises, saying they're being targeted because of their history, because of the old scandals people refuse to let die. Others are convinced the silence from officials is proof that there are powerful hands pulling strings behind the scenes. Every time a question goes unanswered, it doesn't calm people down. It just makes the wild theories feel a little less wild. A planned hit might sound extreme, but when every official explanation falls apart, what else are people supposed to think? Inside that hospital, though, the noise from the internet fades into something much quieter and much darker. According to reports circulating online, doctors had to rush King into emergency surgery to relieve pressure on his brain. They say his pulse is steady now, but he's still unresponsive, not following commands, not waking up. One doctor, speaking off the record in the way these stories always travel, supposedly described his injuries as matching repeated blows while restrained. Not a back and forth fight, not two people trading hits, a beating, punishment, and with no camera footage to back